to the 40k Fireside Podcast, where we discuss everything to do with competitive Warhammer 40k with your hosts Vic Vijay and David Galot.
Hey, we are back, and I realize my name is Night Fan from the previous episode. I can confirm this is still accurate and true. So I thought what would be cool is we did an ETC recap, but rather than me talking about Black Templars for an hour again, get some of my teammates on. If you don't know some of these guys' faces, because you might not have met our team before, this is Patrick myON from Team Poland, a WTC champion. Christopher Radford, who I met playing a long time ago, playing against from who was on our team, obviously, and a former part of Team England. And then Lewis Smith, who beat me at LGT the last year as well, a great Tau player and Thousand Suns player for this tournament. So this is some of the guys this is half of Team Ignite, basically. So it's great to have you guys here. And I thought we could go through, this format's going to be a bit different. It's going to be pretty free form. And I think we're going to go through some of the crucial rounds and how our team composition worked, maybe some things we would change, and then perhaps we're going to go with myON, Chris, and Lewis on their lists, what they played, and maybe what they would change afterwards based on their takeaways. And I think it's going to be really interesting because myON, Chris, and Lewis played armies that are really on point and have changed a lot recently. Nice. Cool. So why don't we go into it? The ETC is a tournament. We came first place. We got a draw to stat check in 85-75 draw, but then we beat every single other team. And there were a couple of really good teams here. There were kind of the two best teams in Germany, Zugzwang and Kings of the Hill, who have current active WTC players and that just got second at WTC. And then StatCheck has a huge combination of like very, very good players as well. So we got to play, then we played the Netherlands team as well, which I played against Roman as well, which is a good team as well. So we played, we had 4 very high level rounds as well. And the first round was actually one of the tougher lower seed teams as well, right guys?
Yes, definitely.
And I realize I've got a panel of people, so when I kick it back to you guys, you're gonna feel not sure if I'm talking to anyone in particular. So I will direct this table. myON, why don't we go over our team comp, what we kind of took in total? Do you want to run us through?
Okay, so I think we can go with outside no-brainers. So we took obviously broken armies, at least some of them. Starting with, let's go from the back. So Dari, this is like the top option since a couple of months. Just for your information, the tournament was actually before the data slate arrived.
Yeah.
So we already knew the changes, but that basically we played for the last, according to the last points, not the newest changes. So
we played with cards as well, which was a good substitute.
Yeah. So Eldari is one of the top factions, easily counter for knights. This is like something I think it's still must have in any team any competitive team composition. And then we went with a flavor of Space Marines, so Black Templars by David. This is also like broken army right now, but you always take one of the like Space Marines, that there will be always something worth playing there. Then we have from less frequent played T-Sons, but still like according to WTC, many top teams also took T-Sons to play. So this is like standard approach. Then we have like 2 heavy push armies that were meant to basically score high points and crush the opponent. So we have combat push armies, so Emperor's Children and World Eaters. World Eaters with it was 70 Berserkers, Chris?
70, yeah. 70.
Yeah. No less than 70 Berserkers. We just don't need shooting. We just run at you. Let's pay a visit to the opponent's home objective, turn 2.
Sometimes turn 1.
That's only on Search and Destroy. But yeah, that's that kind of thing. And then we had like 3 all-rounders, or like less obvious picks. So Orcs by Brian. We all know like Brian loves Orcs. and pretends that they are good around, and someone will disagree. But it's orcs per Brian. This is always a solid list, and always something that can basically trick your opponent during the pairings, because not everyone know how to actually pair against and play against such a niche army right now. Then we have Liam CSM, like all around. I would say this is this is Liam's list, so a bit of everything, and of course capable of scoring a huge scores.
Yeah.
But my perspective of that list is this is more like all rounder in
Yep.
the pairings process.
Yeah, it's got a lot of everything and
Yeah.
a lot of Belgian giant in it, so that usually helps it perform very well.
Yep, exactly. And then my list, so AdMech, which I have basically, I have just stolen the list from our Team Poland member. So kudos to Golonka for inventing the list and playing it over months and months. I just stole it. I playtested against it a couple of times. I played it our last tournament. I played as Ignite. I also play AdMech, so I know how to play with it. This list is a board control army with heavy fire support and with a lot of move block potential. Here in the team composition was our second answer to CK and IK in case they defend first.
Yeah. So I was thinking, why don't we look at two of the rounds? I mean, we had round 3 we played, or was it round 2 we played against Zugzwang, which is like a very good German team and has a lot of kind of upcoming German stars playing it as well, as per my understanding. I was curious, this round we did very well in, but what were the overall trends for our team composition? Myson was doing a lot of the pairings, guys, so that's why we'll focus on him for a second. But what was the kind of early flavors here? Do we have some armies that we would save for later and some armies that we'd use earlier to try and take anything that came?
So basically, I was doing the pairings with Liam. Here, first thing to check on the opponent's team comp was if they have CK or not, because CK can counter both of our push armies, so our heavy scorers. World Eaters and EC are armies that get a little bit punched by CK of different flavors.
Yeah.
So we need to protect those two from CK and get rid of CK basically as soon as we can. So this is like the first checkpoint to check on the opponent's team comp. Here they did have it, so we already knew that we needed Dari and AdMech sitting around and waiting for CK defender.
Right, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that was it. Here and basically we decided which of our all-rounders will go as the first defender on our side. Here, according to if I remember correctly, it was Brian going first as first
so
defender.
we have kind of Orcs, which is a little more susceptible, but we have me on Black Templars and Liam VSL on Chaos Space Marines that were just kind of more good singles lists that can kind of play anything and have a very high ceiling, high floor of what they would actually win or lose to. And I think both CSM and Black Templars have a kind of big player skill element to them as well, so maybe people weren't as familiar playing into them here, which is why some of the things didn't look as drawish as they kind of seem. But broadly speaking, if we had some really tough matchups we wanted to get rid of for our team composition, or if they had a really particularly skewed army that was very good against us, we'd try and draw that out with either me playing it or Liam playing it right, or in this case, we put Brian out there to try and draw something out, didn't we?
Yeah.
Nice.
Basically, we looked on the table on our estimations and then saw what we can do about basically which of the factions from our potential defenders are needed later on as an answers, and then we looked who benefits from the table choice the most.
Yeah. So I was going to say, Lewis, it looks like you bit the bullet a little bit on this round. Do you want to talk us through what you ended up playing?
Yeah, I think also just to kind of add to what Myson said is that I don't think we've mentioned what the mission was for this round, which I don't know how much that factored into pairings as well. Maybe, Myson, you want to comment on that? But if I recall, this round was supply drop, hammer and anvil, which I think is a very polarizing match, particularly depending on if you're going first or second. So yeah, I wonder there if that mattered for pairings at all, just as an open question for you. But otherwise, I'm very happy to start talking about my game at least.
Oh, okay. So about the pairings for supply drop is kind of tricky because you can't actually predict what will happen. Here.
So does that mean you don't lean into it all, or you do lean into
I think I don't have. Sometimes when I'm doing the pairings, I'll lean on to which mission is that. But it's usually about, is the mission drawish or like high differential here.
Yeah.
But on supply drop, especially, it's random because for example, if we have 8 tables and on every table, just players decide to not play the game and not push, not do anything about it, then basically we have a situation that the players going second will score 15 at the end, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that's that's something we need more to take into account, but maybe not during the pairings themselves, but during the round and during the games. That was something we are missing here. So a coach that and usually when on WTC, for example, you have coaches just going around the tables and seeing what's happening.
Yeah,
For example,
I was going to say that's a really good piece of advice. So for supply drop in particular, you can't really plan to pair around the mission in that case because it's a binary kind of flip on all the tables. But the more important element there, and particularly in this mission, is to find out which of your tables are going to be going, in this case, second, because that's a bit stronger, right? So not really preparing in the pairing stage, but being more active on there as soon as the first turn roll-off has been decided, right?
Yep. And then you decide basically where to push, where to stop, where to deny the game, and that's how you play on supply drop as a team. That's
cool. Nice.
But for example, when you're playing Scorched Earth or Ritual, then you need to take into account for pairings that this mission is drawish. So you will be looking like for bigger
More
differential. Yeah, potential. So you will be looking for to really get our push armies a really good pairing so they can score.
Makes sense. And we'll probably talk about that one a little bit later because we have the Ritual versus Static as well. I was going to say, Lewis, who did you end up playing this round?
Yeah, I think that's really ties into quite well to what Myson was saying. So I think, so I was playing into World Eaters. So I think the first thing to say is what's quite interesting about this game is this is a matchup that Chris and I had played once, at least on TTS, to get an experience of what it felt like. And I think going into this without a consideration of what the mission was, I think Chris and I broadly felt that it was an okay matchup for Thousand Suns. I could play for a draw at least. And Chris, I think something that we kind of talked about, and just see if you agree with me, was like the 20-mans really help in this matchup in a sense of Thousand Suns struggle to get a single activation into such a large unit and clear them whilst playing around Blood Surge. So broadly speaking, the 20-mans make this a better matchup for World Eaters than it would be otherwise. It's a game which I think I would take 9 out of 10 times if they just had 10 mans, for example. So at least going into this, I thought it was going to be tricky but playable. And I think if I remember, I think I was a very late defender, and I had a choice of this between World Eaters and Imperial Knights on a less preferred table choice because it was later. And I said I'd be happy to play both. Knights is probably a bit better, but it looks better for other people in the pairings, so I'll take the World Eaters. And I think in any other mission, I think my score would have been a little closer to a draw, partly because you don't get any primary for your home objective. But I think a couple swings happened in our game, which is worth mentioning, and also maybe a good time to talk about my list and what I would change, knowing this matchup a bit better. So the first thing I would say is almost counterintuitively, going first into World Eaters, irrespective of the mission, is better than going second, even though there's the end game scoring on this mission. So that put me in a back foot going in, because he had that early staging before I was able to move, block, and slow down the game. So from turn 2, I was already having to play from the World Eaters being on me. And then this is where it kind of gets interesting from the mission itself, is because you have 3 objectives in the middle, and he can put so much forward pressure on me. It doesn't matter hugely that I can kill him. If I can't kill everything and get onto the objectives, then he's going to be getting primary and getting quite far ahead. Just so it happens in this matchup, I killed most of the berserkers, but not in individual units. So just having 1 or 2 models left was enough to just kind of keep him on there. And I was really penned in. So it meant that I was denying him for a degree in the early game. And then at least I was able to keep him off as the objectives disappeared. But it just meant by turn 5, when I was going to catch up on my score, I wasn't able to make it out because I was still tagged at that point. So I think it's really reflective of the mission there. And also probably maybe something interesting just to bring up on Thousand Suns with my list in particular. So it's definitely an army which needs a bit of babying and pairings to a degree, because table can matter quite a lot. And there's a few armies in the games which can really just blunt them to a degree, because Thousand Suns scores come from its ability to push. And if your opponent castles, then it heads to a drawish result. Usually it goes wrong for Thousand Suns if you push and then you don't kill what you intended, and then your kind of army falls apart, because in the end it's just a few units of Marines and Magnus. But so I think that meant that there were times where you kind of lead into these matchups where actually maybe it's better to have more of a skewed list, at least for a differential point of view, if you're already going to be getting babied a little in pairings. So a couple design points, which I think is general to any Grand Coven list, is that I had the Vortex, for example, which is the relic for an extra damage and strength on one of my characters. I had that on my Infernal Master, which I'd say is very in the middle. It's good into every matchup, but it's not bad into anything. It's just bang in the middle. You get an Overwatch activation, which is one of the strengths of it. But particularly into World Eaters, this is an example where I would have benefited from putting it on a Sorcerer, because then I have this character who's 9 shots, sustained 3, and lethals damage 2. And then that gives me the single activation into a 20-man unit of Berserkers, which would have really helped in this matchup, because then my damage is more concentrated in a single unit rather than being split across several, which is almost the wrong approach to have into that army. So I think the takeaway lesson is obviously always play for points when you realize after turn 1 it's going wrong. And I think at least Liam appreciated that, and I'm glad to have got points out of it anyway and not be too far off the mark if I was hoping to get maybe into an 8 range. But I think it just shows probably a more nuanced level about like how impactful a mission can make it into specific armies which would otherwise be okay.
Yeah, excellent analysis from Lewis there. Loving it. And what about you, Chris? You were playing, I think, Chris, is this one of the better tournaments you've had, I think, at a very high level? I feel like you performed pretty well this one, right?
Yeah, it's a very good event for me, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think I found an army which really suits how I like to play the game. Which is very aggro, no guns, so I hate a shooting face. So just so they can run forward and hit people in the face.
Yeah.
So it went really, really well.
You were playing against the new Votan here, right?
Yes. So in pairing to this one, I said to Myson and Liam, and I said, look, I have not even looked at the Leagues of Votan Codex. I've not opened it. I have no idea what it does.
Yeah.
So I said, with degrees free for me, which is draw.
Yeah.
But I said, if there's anything else, just give me that. Don't give me the one I'm going to try and push and not know what goes on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, just give me something else. And then half your parents came up to me, I think it was Mice or Liam, and they're like, you're probably going into the vote on here, by the way.
Come
it was like
on.
that on Knights, wasn't it?
We gave you a choice. It's either Votan or CK or Ike.
And that's like, yeah, we'll take the Votan.
so you picked Votan from...
oh gosh, it was early in pairing, so I rushed off. I went to my opponent straight. I was like, "Have you got your codex? I need your codex now, please."
But luckily enough, this was like the more melee version of Votan, right? The Delve Assault shift, right?
It was, yeah. And there's kind of a thing going on in combat matchups, and me and you, Dave, we practice a lot. I think we've done 4 games prior to this event.
Yeah.
So we played that World Eaters Black Templar match a lot, and a combat matchups just have a theme at the moment that they become very standoffish. Yeah. Because of stuff like Heroic Intervention being so good. that you don't want to be the one to make the first charge, and especially if you mess it up, it can go wrong really badly.
Yeah.
So in this matchup, basically stood at each other, further enough away that we couldn't charge each other.
Yep.
And then he just screamed to me every turn.
Yeah.
And I think if I knew the matchup a bit better, I knew his army more, I'd be a bit more confident in my play. But I just eked out small resources, like he'd put a screen forward of Jaegers and I'd send some Jackals in to kill it. He'd put something forward, I'd send some Berserkers and so on. And we did that for about 3 turns, and then Liam came over to me and said, "Push." So, like the round was going more maybe a draw.
Yeah.
And my opponent made one mistake. He sent a unit. I had my big block of 20 in the middle, and I had another block of 20 to the right hand flank. And he decided he was going to try and start the game essentially. So he decided, because I put a big block of 20 in the middle, he saw an opportunity to swing round with a unit of 10 Chthonian Berserkers and hit like the flank of them, and he thought he had an opportunity to hit the flank and then basically prevent me not activating my back half of the unit, if I remember correctly. There's some way of him blocking it, I think. I think that's correct. But as he did that, I was able to intervene with some spawn, and as he charged, I intervened with some spawn, tagged the back part of his unit, and stopped him from being able to activate into my Khorne Berserkers. So that meant that only half his Berserkers activated. Then my Khorne Berserkers killed him back because they're all alive, and I got to consolidate 6 forwards and be free. And then from that point on, I went from a prediction of an 8 because I was going first to a prediction of I think I went 14 almost straight away because I was in. I was in the game. I got some extra primary, had the tempo suddenly, and I could just collapse my whole army. And what it really showed is that for World Eaters, especially, and this version of World Eaters out, is like this army. If you make one mistake against it, you're done. It's so punishing to mistakes. You have to be so careful. And in this combat matchup, he went for the first big charge, and he made one mistake. He just let me get a heroic intervene, which completely changed what he thought was going to happen. And I had all the tempo then. The game was mine, basically.
I actually found
really interesting.
Yeah, I think every game I played was a combat matchup apart from Index Votan, and I found that was really fascinating too, was that typically people make a lot more mistakes in the combat matchup, whereas the shooting matchup, most shooting people are good at, I move here, you can see me, I can't shoot me, XYZ, whereas the combat has a lot more layers to it, so to speak, and a lot more opportunities to mess up, and I've actually found that a lot of my wins were a lot higher because people were messing up coming into me a lot of the times. That also helps because my teammates are doing so well that people told they had to push into me, which usually helps when you're castled up. But I completely agree. And Myson, what did you end up playing this time? You had Chaos Knights.
That's a fun game. That was
This was the bounce, I assume, right?
that was a total bounce of my shooting. So I got the worst 2 turns of my. I'm not sure of my career for the game.
Yeah.
That's one of the top from perspective of rolling badly. Okay, so first of all, this is Hammer and Anvil, and there's one tricky table. So that's table 8 for Hammer. That actually is very good for any Knight's flavor. I played this matchup a couple of times on this particular map, and you have 2 staging positions for the Knights that. Especially on the hidden on the side from in one ruin. That basically you take the staging, and next turn you have very high visibility into the opponent's deployment zone. So going first is really good here. But we played normal game for 1 turn. And my opponent started, so I was kind of happy because I knew that I just need to stand with 10 Rangers or something like that until the end of the game, and it should be fine. But so my first shooting was okay, I killed 2 carnivores. That's okay. Still hidden with my breachers. I've tagged one of the CKs, so he can't move into my DC. So all is good. Next turn, when he committed his big knight, then I answered with nearly my entire army into this particular knight, and left him on 7 wounds.
It's less than ideal, yeah.
That was a bad idea and bad planning from my side. but when you leave the knight on 7 wounds, and that wasn't the whole disaster. because that was one turn of shooting. That's okay. Then he shot me back as expected. He killed like half from one big knight. One big knight killed 1.5 breacher. That's more or less okay. Then there was a fun moment. He rolled. He left over one breacher on one wound, so he shot his indirect like from one of the stalker carnivore, trying to like finish off him with one wound. So he not only like killed one, but killed two with a single indirect.
Nice.
That's D6 shots, hitting me on 4s, wounding me on 5s, and I have save on 3 out. So it dealt total 4 wounds.
Sweet.
So that and the second knight killed over the entire squad basically. So and just for the breachers are like centerpiece of AdMech. So they combined with Overwatch shooting, they can basically kill nearly anything in the game in one activation. On one of my games, for example, I rushed breachers in the middle, and also versus CK, split fire killed 3 carnivores on one activation, and then waited for the knight his push with Overwatch, and that basically made me game 2 times. And here, I just died to random indirect shooting, so that's super fun.
2 opposite ends of the spectrum, basically.
And then basically my game collapsed. I still hope that I will have this squad of rangers sitting around and being able to grab this central objective at the end. But my another turn of shooting was more or less the same. I killed them one night, but for example, if I needed to commit the entire army to the same night to still kill it, which was unexpected. 2 times in a row, my destroyers, so another Cataphrone squad, destroyers with plasmas, with lethal hits and stuff. In their phase activation, they hit 6 times out of 24 shots. Expected value is 18. And then the second activation with them, I get 5 hits. My chickens, last cannons, chickens, for example, I rolled like 5 hits and then 0 wounds. And that was like 2 turns in a row, and against CK, the game just collapses.
Yeah.
What is
fun? I was going to say, Knights are definitely one of those armies where if you do have a whiff turn, it can just be detrimental so much more than another army, where if you kill, I don't know, 10 out of 20 berserks, it's like, okay, you've at least like maybe half the damage, right? But a knight is like, if you do kill it or you don't kill it, then it's like, you're either getting hit again or you're not getting hit again.
The fun fact is that the AdMech changes that they showed in the data slide would help me like straight up every bad rolling here because I needed this hit reroll to get the damage and wound reroll from last cannons, which would be basically with all these additional rules. I think I should be fine.
Nice. So that was kind of our round against Zugzwang, and the next round we played against StatCheck. And they had some pretty interesting lists, and we were also playing the Ritual. Now, I don't know if any of the listeners have ever played the Ritual, the new version of the Ritual, but it is exactly the same as the old version, but there are 2 more objectives already in the middle. So it's pretty hard to push a differential on this mission, and I don't know about you guys, but I think we also played the Ritual WTC like 2 years ago, and when we were with New Zealand, for example, and we played like a really tough team, we were like, yes, like we can play the Ritual. We can get like, it's going to be hard for them to push into us. And I feel like that was kind of experienced this time because so many of these games were just smack bang in the draw range, weren't they?
I think something else with this as well, which is especially polarizing, is how many secondary cards are just countered by the way the objectives spawn. Like, Tempting Target is a dead card. Like, it's like, it just brings the scores to like 10-10. And you can just get really unlucky in ways outside of your control with this.
I was going to say, Patrick, were there any like big takeaways for playing this? I mean, StatCheck had some pretty interesting lists. They had Exorcists, like Indirect Sisters. They had Innes Wilson with Warpbane Task Force with the Grey Knights. Then they also had Nathan Roberts playing Chaos Knights again with like Rodigus, 3.5 bigs. They had Malta playing 30,000 Suns Terminators and Rubrikai Phalanx, which is like very hard to push into. And then they also had Gito from Team Poland, your teammate, playing Star Shadow with 20 Warriors. They had a pretty good team composition overall, I felt like, right?
Yep. I think like they have they took their factions that they're experts in, and those were like non-standard approaches for playing. Like
Yeah.
30 Terminator list is a little bit different take than a Coven,
Yep.
and plays differently on the table. Also, Necrons are with 20 warriors on Star Shatter. We didn't saw it much at WTC at all. It
Yeah.
was all usually they're raids and Star Shatter stuff, and here we have warriors, which are a little bit better because you need to like anti-horde something to kill them off. So this kind of list is hit or miss, but here Ghetto just smashed with it, and he had a really good idea to actually take this like 20 warriors.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, you mentioned before about like when you're playing a drawish mission, you need to look for differential. What was that the approach that we had here? We're trying to we're trying to mitigate some matchups and then try and get some bigger wins so we can actually get above the 85 point threshold here.
Here, I don't remember what we exactly did, but I think we didn't. It was like third round in the day, and we didn't like try to over-engineer the pairings. So we did like standard approach. But after the pairings, we just realized with Liam our estimation tables must differ totally because something went really like wrong on the.
Yeah, and that's actually it's a really good point. Like a lot of times, both teams think that they come away winning the pairings process, right? Because the reality is that neither team has an accurate matrix to varying degrees, but also people obviously more often than not pair to worlds wins, but you don't always go in with the same information that your opponent has as well, right? Like people can have different reads on different matchups. For example, I think Typhus had a winning matchup into me when I saw their matrix as well. And then we also had a winning matchup into Grey Knights with our Orcs as well. And obviously both of those like flipped completely on their heads, right? So it's kind of the thing, and I guess that goes to speak about like you need that mid-round tallying up of points, right? Of like where we can actually push. And I think for the ritual in particular, we were trying to engineer ourselves into positions of like, what are some matchups we can get some larger wins into potentially here? And then which matchups are probably not even going to matter, right? For example, in the round, guys, our CSM versus Emperor's Children, 10-10. 30,000 Suns Terminators is going to be a 10-10. I mean, it's the most drawish mission with the most drawish army, basically. And
okay, let's go on.
No, I was going to say like Chaos Knights. Lewis beat Chaos Knights 11-9, but very close draw range. Vic played against Gustavo, who's in the Discord as well, 10-10. Tomas Gito edged out a 12-8 against Boris. Ennis took a 15-5 against Brian. I took a 20-0 against Typhus, and then an 11-9 against Drakari. And and from my perspective, in an 8-man team environment, it's pretty hard to get more than maybe 1 to 2 matchups where you're actually being able to push a differential, right? Particularly in this mission. So actually getting beyond the winning point is actually quite difficult if all players are very equal player skill, and like all players on this roster are all basically equal player skill with us. So you can't really rely on player skill pushing your differential. And if people want to play for draws, everyone on this 16-person pairing is good enough to play for a draw for sure, right?
I think that's quite an interesting point, and something which came up in our game as well against Nate. So I was speaking to Liam right at the beginning of the round, and like straight into turn 1, I told him I think I have an opportunity to push, and he was like, just take it. So that could also be something mission related as well, where like especially having an advantage is so rare, and I didn't think there was going to be too much repercussions on this mission because I was going first. So I sent as much as I could to try and just kill him. It didn't work. I only killed 2 knights this entire game. 2 little ones, I should say. I still got 11 points, so I mean that's quite a success. But I think it can be really challenging to do that, just as you've said.
I think one of the worst parts about this mission design, we were playing Hammer and Anvil ritual, which actually would have been significantly better if we were playing maybe search and destroy ritual, because on Hammer and Anvil you can spawn them along your deployment zone, so you can win 11-9 by just being an inch above your deployment zone line, which is a bit of a bad mission combination in that sense. I think, like, if it was at least search and destroy, you would have a lot more aggressive plays, and the objectives might be a little bit closer to your opponent, I think, right?
I would say that on the search and destroy, you can always like also put the line of the objectives even like further away.
Right. Yeah. I guess
That's
like
on
right
the edge. Probably you can put the objective from the. If you start it just on the smaller edge of the table,
yeah.
and then basically turn this into like hammer and anvil deployment, and during
like
the
a
game,
triangle.
and then and do the 3 objectives in triangle, and then basically you're. I feel like ritual with all the 3 objectives in the middle that left over is like a mistake. They should like either get rid of this mission totally or just leave the central objective. That is fine.
Yeah. And Chris, you played against Drakari here?
Yeah, I hate Drakari. So this is another game. I went in on day 1. We were absolutely shattered because obviously we went to bed at 1 in the morning, and then we were woken by a rooster at 4 in the morning. So I had like no sleep. And then I hadn't played Drakari in about a year. I played like a long time, and after playing Leagues of Votann, I haven't played for ages, so I didn't really know it much. Looking back now, I obviously got an 11-9 win, but we played probably the most boring game of 40k I've ever played in my life, where we both just stood there spawning objectives and just scoring and just drawing cards. That's literally what we did. I put a little bit out to try and draw some stuff out, like Berserkers, but nothing was going on. But looking back on that one now, I think actually he's quite wildly favoured. I just didn't quite understand his profiles or understand the potential damage he has. I looked at his strats and I thought, you've got reactive move 6, you've got fight first in 3 places, you can react with the court and then intervene and fight first, and I was thinking this could get really bad if I do this wrong. If I go for the all-in and I get this wrong and the court activates and kills more berserkers than I expected to do, and I'm trying to do the math on a Court of the Archon, it's the hardest thing to do in the world.
Yeah.
When you're very tired and you've had a beer at that point, I was thinking, what? I can't comprehend this stuff at the moment. And Solitaire and Lilith and I was thinking this could just go wrong. So I stood and I tried to perch up a bit, but he's a very good, Power's an amazing opponent, like the nicest guy you can ever play in 40k. And he knew what he was doing, and he set up a really good defensive setup with his court in the middle. He had the transports just behind, so I couldn't wrap them. It made it impossible to wrap. I was thinking, I just can't go in without fully knowing this matchup well enough. If I play it again, I think I could get more of that. Especially on Ritual. I think that's a good mission for me to push, actually. I think World Eaters want to play Ritual because we're one of the best armies in the game to take your opponent's objectives, even if we're on their deployment line. We can definitely take them. So yeah, I think I could have been the push player there, 100%, and I should have been. And I think this was my lowest score, and one I could have got higher if I played that again.
And I was thinking, the fight on death, like, you don't need a lot of high quality if you just got a bit of volume. So even if they rinse your unit, you just completely rely on the fight on death to, like, neuter 80% of their units. Yeah. And then, like, your second wave of, like, even Jackals and Goremongers can do a bit of damage after that, maybe.
So we got to about turn 3, and obviously we can, at the very start, we weren't sure how your game was going, Dave, and I looked over to you, you looked really worried. Yeah. But then, obviously, by turn 3, I was being communicated to you again, 20.
Yeah.
And I think, I can't remember exactly what was said, but it was like we're on the borderline of a win.
Yeah.
So about turn 3, I started pushing. And I started taking primary, which is where I got my small lead. I thought I'd just go for it, because if I go down to like a 5, it's fine. So I just started pushing. And I sent 20 man in at one point. I hit Lilith, and I hit a couple of things, and Lilith got to fight first, if I remember correctly. And I think she killed like 13 Berserkers.
Yeah.
And then of those 13 Berserkers, only 2 fought on death.
Oh, brutal.
So only 2 fought on death, and then the rest of my army activated back into him. And I killed, he had a Harlequin and a troop, and I killed like 2 troop on a 4 months. It just went poor. But we discussed it afterwards, and the best I was going to get, because I pushed a bit late, was like a 13 or 14 if I denied his primary towards the end. Anyway, so that might have been the win, but it was a great game, an amazing game, and one where I just need to do what I did and turn earlier and just push like turn 2. And accept that realistically fights first somewhere. I found death, and then I just clean up the rest.
I as a kind of power armor player these days, I can appreciate that Drakari can feel really scary when you're playing into it, right? You're like, oh my god, it's like all anti-infantry, AP4 or something like that. You're like, oh my god, this is gonna like fights first everywhere and stuff. And yeah, I didn't want that matchup, for example.
Another point on that, actually, which I remember as well, he's got Drazar, and Drazar forces a battle shock. Now, Drazar has all 2 damage weapons with his Incubi. He can kill a massive amount of Berserkers in one go if he like intervenes into like a couple, and then he gets to activate. Now, I can minus 1 damage that, but if I fail that battle shock, it's going bad. So there was so many failure points. I was thinking without knowing this fully well and this matchup and practicing it, I don't feel safe to push here. So yeah,
that's a cool recap. Yeah, Bison had the 10-10 against the Thousand Suns Terminators, and I'm assuming I remember looking at that board many times, and that was spawning ritual markers and doing some secondaries.
I actually managed to get an advantage on primary points, like 10 points higher than Malta, but once I managed to basically hold one objective in the No Man's Land additional objective, and once I denied him deploying the objective because there was just one spot he could deploy. So I parked my birds over there. So he cannot do
blocked it.
I moved like the potential spot, but on the other hand, I got like 1 round of dead draw or secondaries.
Yeah.
Tempting target, round 4. Thank you.
Yeah, call the horde.
I was tempted by like objective hole held by 20 Terminators or something like that.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
So that was that. And I redraw missions into the secondary missions the last two rounds with something like really minimal. So I got like really lower score on secondaries, and I actually in small points I got exactly 5 points advantage. That's not enough to get 11. So that's. But the game itself was fun because we played one turn, and then Malta considered pushing. Actually, he asked Thomas, who was a stat check coach from Team Netherlands, shall he push? And then basically he decided I will push. Then he thought, measured something, calculated. Okay, no push. I'm not pushing. I was so basically because I parked my Cataphrons in the ruin counter the Terminators. So if he pushed me, because every turn I basically deployed 10 birds into his front line, so he couldn't move past my screening. He needed to charge me in the middle to get there, and then he get like my first guaranteed my first shooting from breachers this line. So he needed to survive shooting, then Overwatch, and but you can play around Overwatch with Terminators with the additional move from the psychic powers, so it's not that easy for me to get this Overwatch activation. But in general, this is like pairing that relies on me move blocking. Actually, me going first would mean that I could potentially deny his scoring and planting the objectives, because I knew where to basically put birds to deny the deployment of additional objectives for turn or 2. So that would actually allow me to like score 12 or 13 if I went first, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never considered kind of just blocking the ritual marker with my units where they can actually spawn it. Granted, my army is not fast enough.
That's why with AdMech, for example, I start 10 birds with move after shooting on board, and they're deployed kind of aggressively. With breachers to counter, or if I don't go first, someone goes for the burst and I have breachers counter. But if I go first, I can deploy and block the entire DZ from the opponent and then take the staging position. So that's basically how I played this AdMech, and that was my plan for the game.
I was going to say, why don't we chat about the lists we took maybe? I'll go very quickly. I played Black Templars. I probably wouldn't change anything about the list. Really loved it overall. It was very, really good. It's nice when you play a tournament where you come back and like, I probably wouldn't change anything. But Lewis, I think in light of the balanced data slate, perhaps it'd be cool to bring in your thoughts on where you think Thousand Suns are. And then I'd love to get your thoughts on Tau as well. If you guys don't know, Lewis is a phenomenal Tau player.
Thank you. So Yeah, I think Thousand Suns have been taken out back and shot in the head. Is a nice way to put it. But
Right.
I mean, they've been hit.
All right, it's all good. There goes our monetization. No problem.
No, I said yeah, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. You can edit that out. It's an army which I think was hit in two ways. One, which is especially, I think, makes the army less enjoyable to play.
Yep.
Because they changed the casting mechanic, and now that you can only attempt it once, not cast it once. So I think fundamentally it's a higher risk army to play now, because if spells which you relied on for the macro strategy of the army, so the double moves, the reroll hits, the doom bolts, they don't happen, then your ability to deal damage, let alone even get in the right place, just kind of ceases to exist. I think you played a few games with them when they were coming out, and at the very least, like, Mice and Chris have played against it, and they've seen the turn where the Thousand Suns player's like, okay, I need to make that double move, I need to move 6 inches. If they fail it, it goes catastrophic, because then they're not crossing the staging point they needed to, or getting line of sight. So there was an element of solitaire to playing the army, and like doing it on your own, rolling your spells, and if it doesn't happen, then the army just like trips over on itself and falls apart. So like, I think what the change they made there is quite catastrophic for the way the army is currently played at one level, because at least from my list structure is a lot of the play patterns relied on the spells, the double move and the rituals generally. The secondary thing is also just points, which in on itself I can stomach, but I think the point to make is that if you're reliant on spells and things go wrong, then you lose that stuff. Well, it's even more dramatic if you have less stuff to start off with. So the margin for error is smaller. That was quite pessimistic, and why I compared it to a certain act of violence. But I do feel like there are builds which still exist for Thousand Suns, and in some ways I don't really mind it in the context of teams. The reason being is because Terminators and Demon Princes are still units which are relatively untouched from the points changes, and function independently on a whole from the army rule mechanic. So Demon Princes have a rapid 6-inch deep strike. They get reroll hits and wounds on their datasheet into certain units. So I mean, that's already gives you a bit of reliability. The main strength of Terminators was their durability, and that thankfully has not changed. I think that, so maybe it's better to compare it to the list that Malta was playing with 30 Terminators. Is like, I'd be more inclined to skew that way. Where also, because it's in Rubrikai Phalanx, where you have a secondary strat to give one of your units assault, which is a bit like having a second double move. It's extra movement on a d6. So I felt kind of like that was in some ways the first attachment I looked at, was interested in when the book came out, if you remember, David. And now it's kind of like a Dune done a full circle. I still think that is okay. You're just going to have a little less stuff. But to be honest, if people are going to be bring World Eaters, especially to teams, why not have an army with an army rule which makes World Eaters AP 0 into my 2-up save army? So that sounds pretty brilliant to me.
Yeah, that's an interesting skew, that one. What about your thoughts on Tau, Lewis? Because obviously Tau have got buffed. Do you kind of see them having a bit more of a foothold in the meta right now?
I think it would be insulting to call it a first love, because no one else loves them, and they wouldn't really believe me whatsoever. They'd actually probably kick me off the team. But I do like them more. I rate them higher. I would say it was an army which benefited in two ways. One, from the top armies going down, and then themselves getting some small buffs. I think that the most powerful thing that they did recently was the changes to the guiding mechanic, but that kind of really didn't manifest, because as the way the army plays is it was limited by speed. It doesn't matter if you hit a bit better, but if you can't get into position, then it doesn't really play the game in the right way. But I historically lean towards the Riptide builds, just because then it kind of encourages your opponent to come to you. It has more of a standoffish element, like a vehicle spam kind of list, and that unit just went up to strength 10 from strength 8, which is probably the single biggest buff they've had, better than the guiding. I've just started playing some games again with it, and like, it's a unit which before struggled to kill tanks, and now it flips them on its own. I mean, I feel very good about it. I think in teams as well, when Tau is good, it's a fabulous army, because it's a very nice first defender on an open board, which you can build your pairings around. Nice. I think also similarities can be drawn to guard as well.
Yep, I
particularly
could
with
see
how I
that.
play it. Just like the volume of bodies and inventory, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the way it plays primary control. So I think it means at the very least that they have played. But I think with Eldar subtly getting worse, I think that's a benefit for them. And then they don't like Thousand Suns whatsoever. So I mean that's a very positive
Nice.
thing. If I'm giving up on my other army, yeah,
Nice.
that's where my head is at. But
Cool.
yeah, I think the general thing with Thousand Suns though is like it's even more of a team list now. If you're
Yeah.
going to take it in teams at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think if we were to play this tournament again with this current balance status like coming in, I could definitely see you bring in Tau actually, and that could have been pretty good as some first defender options for us. I think, and the Tiger Shark I think adds a little bit of spice there, which is interesting.
So I've just been brewing that at the moment, not to drag it on too much, but like it has a lot of activations in the list which deal quite well with units in the meta. So like a unit which rapid ingresses like a Tiger Shark is like adds a really interesting dynamic into the game where armies rely on anti-tank, which is short ranged. So like the Eldar with the fire dragons, like they're never going to be killing it on ingress. So then you have a really good way to counter the armies, which can play on these heavier boards, which aren't necessarily good for Tau.
That's interesting.
You can spend 300 points on a unit which like puts out like 50 shots, and then it makes and that also has its place as well because armies like World Eaters are skewing to having big units as well. So it's definitely got tech pieces, and I think that means it's at least worth giving a look.
Nice. Yeah, I know in the tier list that we did recently, we put Tau a little bit more up there, which is spicy as well. Chris, you were playing World Eaters with the 70 Berserks. We saw the 80 Berserk list very popular at WTC and Team France. You've adopted to drop 10 Berserks in place for some more chaff. What do you think about your list overall? Obviously, World Eaters had some changes, so maybe after that you could talk about if you would adopt any of the new point decreases.
Yeah, definitely. So prior to the data slate, I wouldn't change my list at all. I think I was really happy with my list was. I'd basically taken off 10 Berserks. So I had, instead of having 3 bricks of 20, like Matt had, I just had 2 bricks of 20. Then I had 10 Berserkers to go with Khan. So I basically dropped that 10, that saves 180 points, and then I got in more chaff. So it just meant that I could delay the game a little bit if I need to. In the worst of games, like say Thousand Suns for example, I could just keep the game slow for a little bit longer. I could use I had 3 into Jackals, I could use to play mission with, I had 2 into Spawn, which I used to play mission with and go and hunt for cheap units and so on. So it made the game a bit less extreme, but it gave me a bit more overall play into some maybe the worst of games, which I think was the right call because it's ETC, it's not WCC. You're not going to put the exact same amount of prep in. So having that almost a bit of safety was, I think, a good call to make, and I think it worked really well. Jackal's a really strong unit.
I think also in those like closer matchups, having a bit more chaff is really important to edge out to get the game started if you want to as well, and not commit something too big.
Yeah, the melee v melee matchups, like a Templar, for example. I think if I didn't have the chaff, and if I played against your list, and we played it many times, if I didn't have the chaff, I think that game could be really bad.
Yeah, for sure.
But
you just have to commit big unit.
Exactly, having the chaff, and you don't want to commit. You first one to commit loses, and having the chaff allows you to keep the game going basically and keep it to a draw. And I think that was the same for quite a few matchups out there. So yeah, that's what my ETC list was, and I wouldn't change a thing. I think it worked really well. And in every game I played, it either went well and got like 90 points, or I knew things I could have, like my 11 into Drukari, I knew I could have different with that list to get a higher score.
Yep. And do you think that army is quite resilient to a lot of armies in the meta right now?
I'm sure the meta's going to change post slate, but at the current time, yes. I think it seems had like a very high floor.
Yeah, it seems quite difficult to push into.
You can always, in the bad games, you can always just stay still till turn 4 and then push. And no one's going to get through that many blood surging berserkers that quickly. So, in supply drop, if you're going second, you just run out turn 5 on the middle and no one's getting off you. It's yours. So, yeah, it had like that safety net, really, in the bad games, where you just stand still and then run out at the end.
I think World Eaters are a brilliant army. Do you think you would have any changes coming up with the new point decreases?
Yeah, quite a nice Miss Madness we've got above. I love it. It's going to be strong. You're gonna see a lot of World Eaters. Yes, definitely. So I think you're definitely taking. So I think the winners are obviously the 8-band, the Exalted 8-band seem really good. At the moment, the current strategy in my list against like tough stuff, It's just to bog them down and tag them, keep them there.
Mm-hmm.
You're never with the list I played going to go into knights and kill 1 or 2 big knights a turn. It just doesn't happen. And your damage is very swingy because you don't really have rerolls outside the Khan. So my plan with stuff like that was just to bog it down, kill what I could, and then basically stop it doing stuff. And say you're tagged, you can't shoot, you're going to take a long time to kill me. Whereas now we've got Exalted 8 Bound who can kill vehicles like it's paper. I think you're going to see Exalted 8 Bound, you're going to see Slaughterbound very, very strong. Even on their own now, they're strength 12 on the charge. Slaughterbound Berserker Glaive is strength 13 on the charge.
Yeah, doesn't he have like 8 attacks or something too?
He has more than that, Dave. He's got on the charge in Berserker Warband, he could have 10 attacks once per game.
Yeah.
So 10 attacks on the charge at 12-2-2, hitting on 2 for 85 points.
Yeah, it's a good unit.
It's pretty powerful, even on his own. Like that's a decent unit on its own. But stick him into some Exalted 8 Bound, and then against a monster vehicle, he's damage 4 with Berserker Glaive, or damage 3 normally. It's very strong. So you're going to see those Exalted 8 Bound and the Slaughterbound. I think definitely come out. I think Angron's got cheaper. That's something to play with. Ingress Angron in potentially. I don't know, but
you were almost going to be playing Angron as well, right? Like in some of your earlier build iterations.
Yeah, I spoke a lot of vanilla, and he was very pro Angron. I decided not to go for it at the end, but I was tempted to play him definitely. I think it's a good ingress piece, and with adding fly to this army is quite important. I think.
Yep.
Could have some big benefits, and I think what's the other things that I was thinking?
Is the Exalted 8 Bound attachment any good?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Cool. Makes sense. So in your list, you have 70 Berserks. Maybe you go down to like 60 or 50 Berserks maybe, and then put some Exalted 8 Bound and maybe some Slaughterbound in there to just try and rapid ingress them to hit some of the heavier targets.
Exactly. I think it'd be 50 Berserkers. I think you're going to do 2 dots 20 with Juggernauts, and then 10 with Khan in a Rhino. And I think that's like a set. That's the staple of every list that you're going to be playing. And then you're going to go for maybe 2 units of Exalted 8 Bound, a unit of Exalted 8 Bound, and a couple Slaughterbounds.
Yep.
And 1 Slaughterbound with the Glaive, and then you ingress some of the Exalted.
Yep.
The fun thing to play around is a Land Raider, because I think Land Raiders 220 is quite thinking combat, that's -1 damage in combat potentially.
Ooh,
stick that on your middle objective, and that's quite like an anchor for your army to play around, or to force people out to you. And obviously 8 Bound can go in those, so they then move through, get out free, move 10, and charge. Makes them a lot better.
Fault ramp too, you can just move it to some bar.
Exactly. Yeah, which it kind of works out the exact same because that moves 10 and 8 Bound move 10, but
interesting. That's cool. Yeah, I think World Eaters are looking pretty strong coming up. I think the LGT is going to be one of the most popular armies because I think the build is getting a little bit more solved as well and a little bit more visible there. And I think as people play that, they're going to be starting to feel the power, I think. So World Eaters historically, when it has been very good, has been very popular, I think, among the tables. And people really enjoy playing that army, which I think is like a good feels good kind of thing at the table.
It's the most fun it's been. I've played for a year, but it does rest. But it's incredibly fun to play. So much fun. Pairings 6 Consolidate 6 is a drug. At one point in one of my games at the weekend, I mean, it did stuff you should not be allowed to do. You should not. You're just taking objectives wherever you want.
Playing 41k in the 5 days.
Yeah, pretty much.
Myson, we had some, last but not least, we had some pretty big AdMech changes. Do you think this is going to change up kind of the AdMech list design much at all? Or are you thinking it's just a straight up buff?
I think it's like straight up buff. Maybe. With Belisarius Call and update to Twin Link with adding Twin Link to chickens, it's basically straight up buff. But the change on Rastalkers maybe allow for some different builds. Because they also, I don't remember the right change, but they increased the output basically a little bit. There's a second weapon that got damage too. So now you can actually do some close combat units that can kill Marines. So, for example, you can do Halacrete detachment with Rastalkers. You can maybe Skitari Cohort. I can play with them. There are a couple viable builds, but still, I think like the Radzone and the build I played here and Golonka played as part of Team Poland will be still very, very strong. And right now, it received basically everything it lacked. Were you
already playing Belisarius Call? I forget.
Yeah.
Cool. So you were already playing a bunch of these units. So Belisarius Call gets 40 points more expensive, but you get Oath of Moments, so your chickens can just point and click delete something, basically. So a straight buff.
you get full rerolls. Yep.
Yeah, nice. So you were already
would-
pretty high on AdMech as well, I remember. Like, not many people are. So are you thinking they're going to be one of the top armies for kind of until the next balanced data slate?
I think it already was one of the top armies. People tend to disagree with that, but here in Poland, we all of our like matrix estimations against AdMech are usually like really low scores
Yeah.
and straight up loses. It's the army that requires an operator for sure, because one mistake can basically ruin the entire plan. You get a centerpiece unit like Cataphront Breachers that need to activate before they got hit. So if you tag them, if you kill them before they get the chance to kill something, you're on disadvantage, and you need to play this army in a specific way to actually score points. And you don't play with like safe game. You play aggressively with this army. It's not good into. It's got some like drawbacks and weak points, like the push armies with that rely on fly. So jump packs, blood angels. Those are tricky matchups.
Yeah.
Because you can basically jump over the screen of birds and then attack something meaningful behind. But yeah, right now if you have like counter assault units, maybe with the Rust Stalkers, maybe some kind of builds. I actually played Halocrete detachment a couple of times. In the meantime, it was also good with like breachers sitting around and on double Doctrina, because there was an enhancement for that, if I remember correctly. So you get both doctrines at the same time. Yeah, and a little bit more movement with the Halocrete buff. So
Nice, cool. Sounds like AdMech's going to be coming out strong. I know we put them pretty high up on the tier list as well. And I think on for the LGT, I think coming up on some of the UKTC boards, AdMech's going to be looking pretty powerful there as well.
On UKTC, actually, there's one problem with using breachers. It's this like on Search and Destroy, you got huge ruins just from staging ruins, which are hard to get angles behind them, and so you can control the board from the side, from the flank with breachers, but you cannot directly push them into middle and do the damage.
Fuck breaches. I'm not going to be playing any breaches. I'll just play chickens, Rust Stalkers, Infiltrators, a few Dune Riders, and some Vanguards and Rangers.
Yeah, but for Rust Stalkers, those boards can be like really good.
Yeah,
sounds like
nice.
You need a different kind of breaches than a tiger shark. I think that would solve your problems, Myson.
A different kind of breaches. There we go, guys. This has been the ETC recap. I think it's really interesting to look at some of the kind of team takeaways for this, like which lists are performing well. Big thanks to Rude, the TO that puts on this tournament, for having us here as well. It was a pleasure. Ignite, our first kind of outing as an 8-man. It's the first time we've actually had the team together to play. And I think we came away with the win on this one, so it was a good time for us. And thanks for all our opponents, and thanks for Myson, Chris, and Lewis for coming on. This has been half of Ignite, and we'll get the other half on at some point here as well. Okay, guys, catch you later.
Cheers, Dave.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the 40k Fireside. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, drop us a comment, check out the YouTube members area, and we look forward to seeing you again next time by the Fireside.